You ever wondered what the top 10 worlds and games were? Maybe it's time you found out. Let's begin. What does the original Far Cry of all things do better than other games in making its world? Well, let me tell you about this kinky little keyword, saturation. Give me a tropical paradise through the lens of a pack-a-day LSD user and I'm a happy man. You can almost feel the sea breeze sweep through the tree leaves as they appear to have something more green paint than chlorophyll. It's my genuine pleasure to spray paint red all over beaches with sand so soft and white I can only assume the gathering of grains is actually a colonization of these islands. It truly is a relaxing vista. Just look at that water. That water looks so ridiculously pure that I would be unbothered drinking it through your great aunt's lower intestine. The only thing that ruins this game's world is that the second half swaps the traditional beauty standards of the tropics for the uggo-accepting theme of a muddy swamp and jungle. And if a game thinks it can brainwash me about perspective and marketing and attractiveness, I have to consider it no more than an inner beauty type of participation trophy agenda. Good try, snowflakes, but I'll remain with my actually fuckable bright greens and rubbed raw reds. What the Reddits of this world might call pandering deep forests and volcanic wastelands aside, Far Cry does one thing truly right. It displays views of pristine locations that will make any travel vlogger shut the fuck up. And in my book, that's a win. Now if people aren't already getting it, then they'll be getting really mad at me right now. I can hear them already. How can an old N64 game have a better world design than something modern, like Red Dead Redemption 2? And the answer to that's simple. It's good. Crude and inflated attacks aside, you gotta give a hand to a game world that has such a lasting impact on you that even its own sequel made decades later doesn't achieve the same realization of a living open-range zoo. Simplicity does not denote a lack of quality or character, unless we're talking about my audience. Open spaces and vibrant colours designed specifically to be observed, matched with correlating music to give the environment an appropriate resonance and feel, make these worlds a truly escapist fantasy. Including a game with a world designed to resemble a wild and wonderful ecosystem on this list almost feels like cheating. It would be like including my crotch in the standing for the record of world's smallest zoo. And you gotta love storytelling in world design. I love Snap's subtle subplot of Professor Oak trying to murder a teenager. Told by world design reflecting an element of danger, this plot is at its most brazen as Oak teleports you high into a deep ravine without warning. And this after already dropping you next to a volcano with a doubtful amount of volcanologist experience. Thought you were clever, huh, Oak? How would you know if a volcano was just about to erupt? It's a nice alibi for a man whose last name implies he's about to be on the receiving end of a certain kind of chopping profession. You know, there's something really special about taking the beloved worlds of three nostalgia-bait classics and reimagining them as whatever ketamine-induced fever dream the new Dreamweaver's world was supposed to be. But even though I've had less concerning sleep paralysis demons, it's still a beautiful sight to behold. And what's more is that this is but the tip of the proverbial phallic iceberg. What the trilogy really values is variety. Now call it cheating to include 3 games worth of world design in one, but if it's really cheating to include 2 extras into our playtime, well then, you're on track to the obvious joke, my friend. And you'll be starting to hate this video, if you haven't called copper already. The purpose of any 3D open platformer game is to design a world that inherently encourages and rewards exploration of itself. So worlds made to be obviously observed in keen detail will actively reflect that design. It goes without saying that the developers were intent on making a video game world more designed than those who would value it merely as a setting to a vaguely related or unrelated action. So with ketamine worlds, water worlds, desert worlds, 2 coin flip worlds where our protagonist Spyro blatantly engages in war profiteering, what more could you ask for? If variety is the spice of life, then the Spyro Reignited trilogy is our court-appointed lawyer. That is to say, it's representing the entire rack. And with a timeless cartoony and, say it with me, saturated art style, This funny smelling combi van outside a Spice Girls reunion concert may be more than we bargained for. In terms of world design, that is. More than simply insane fun, the open playground that is Just Cause 2's world is an exquisite example of naturalistic beauty. This island nation possesses more climates than a populated office space with one temperature control throughout the day. Naturally, the ideas we've explored previously of variety, saturation, and elements of danger are on full display in Panau, starting with the fact that the protagonist Rico wears the same clothing in the blindingly frozen peaks as he does in the shifting sands desert. But ignore that fact and simply admire how authentic all that bullshit looks and feels. And to really sell the naturalistic worldview, the developers spared no expense in recreating racist stereotypes so pervasive not only of real life, but also of game design in the 2000s. For example, the belief that all Asians can't drive. But really, if you want a practically consequence-free way to explore the various locales and settings of Asia, without breaking the bank on a flight just as likely to deliver you to the pearly gates as it is to the Great Wall, then Just Cause 2 is the game for you. These wondrous environments truly are a captivating source of imagination, whether that's the designer's vision, or the player's agency to blow up all that time-consuming beauty and design in an endless number of creative ways. All of this to say, if you want to escape from our miserable world to one just like ours, but also absolutely not like it in any way, then you can't pass up the magnificence of Just Cause 2's uncanny valley, and jungle, and fields, and coral beds, and metropolis, and... If this is where you're starting to get pissed off, then congratulations, you can't follow simple patterns. If I love saturation, which fair play, I probably haven't mentioned up to this point, and I also love open spaces, and you still think that the Nintendo 64 isn't going to appear again in this list, then Mensa is calling. They need new lab rats, you see. And speaking of lab rats, the twisted creation of a game not originally intended to be a Mario Kart competitor, a Donkey Kong franchise entry, an Origin to Conquer's Bad Fur Day or Banjo-Kazooie, or even a racing game at all, did eventually lead to the most carefree world in gaming. While the tracks look undoubtedly nice, the real stimulation comes from the hub world. Geometrically sharper than Lara Croft's original boob job and sparser in detail than a Rauschenberg painting though it may be, it's exactly these simple elements that bring the beholder a purest peace of mind. I swear the only shape in this hub world that uses more than 3 faces is a more honest rendition of Mount Rushmore. But disregarding the communist propaganda in a family kart racer, you will find serenity as you explore an island paradise, home only to an elephant so confusing and vaguely political that no one can actually tell if it's racist or not.
Wow!
And also a fucking stopwatch that makes me more insecure than the app that stole his fucking name.
Why are you running?
Nonetheless, Daddy Schlong's vibrant resort is the ideal game world to visit when Play School stops airing. Open, colourful, and humble, it's like me if I were a video game. And also gave into a delusional self-image I have. No, you're not hallucinating, just delusional, but that's unrelated to this video. You see, the thing about Two Worlds 2, the once proclaimed Oblivion dethroner, is that it represents variety not only within itself, but from the rest of the industry. How can I not give recognition to the game that not only has the same amount of variety in its environments as other RPGs, but not one of them is a Green Plains world, Ice world, or Volcano world? And to add in a teaspoon of nepotism in this otherwise purely scientific and objective ranking, they just happen to be environments that make me say wow more than I do referentially for an item later on in this list. While you may start in a typical forested island, you will very quickly find yourself moving on to a savanna biome. Why don't more games mix things up with savannas? Part desert and part grasslands, two already great and ageless potentials for world design, but not quite either. It's a warm, intensely coloured landscape that feels both wild and open beyond any constriction. And the potential for wildlife. One day I will have my RPG where I can go off track and be adopted by a meerkat family, I swear to God.
No, 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 no.
Moving on, you will find yourself in a jungle, ordinarily very typical, except that is for the inhabiting culture. Taking a sudden eastern turn, you will quest through a stunning town of Japanese-style architecture. Now, I'm no weeb, but even I have to admit that something about the look and feel of this town is suddenly making me want to participate in a 4chan thread. The town itself may actually be a nightmare to traverse, which surely takes away from the experience, but if you had to be mad in a locale, at least make that locale a beautifully realised PTSD nightmare of that time you lost your mum in a shopping centre for only minutes but it seemed like hours. And I, for one, will hang on to the memories of these zones, just as long as I'll hang on to the reason for my abandonment issues, Mum. Oh hi Mensa, how are you? Yeah, I'm good. I'm just about ready to talk about Donkey Kong 64's use of open spaces, variety and oversaturation. And also about how not to sound like a broken record. Because, let's be honest, the only record I'm breaking is for the most useless list on YouTube. But Guinness won't accept me until the infringement suit with Watch Mojo dies down. In the meantime, let me ask you this. Have you ever felt at home in a video game world? Nah, really. Have you ever felt the level of comfort and security in a location within a video game as you do in that bed that you're watching this at 1 in the morning in? Because there's something about the DK Crew treehouse that you start the game in that really helps me relax. And when that Jack-in-the-Box boss is on the horizon, you always need to fucking relax in this game. The cozy little tree shack is situated in a tree canyon with a view to the sky. Within a mountain, shaped like Donkey Kong's head. And for as many questions as that raises, it also lowers the number of fucks I give about the answers. On a banana beached island and creative and unique hub world design, this yeehaw sits, keeping me safe from acknowledging the threat of imminent destruction with a gator laser. And you can do that for literally ever. Nothing's gonna happen. But from there you can venture into awesome Egyptian deserts and rigid but playful clockwork army factories with nary a thought regarding imminent destruction from gator lasers or Jack-in-the-Boxes more horrifying than any psyche-destroying monstrosity Silent Hill could conjure up. So for all the shit this game gets for being a collectathon with too many collectibles somehow, like complaining about a dispenser that gives you too much free fucking soda, remember that it makes it worth it just to look around and take in the beautifully creative and wacky imminent destruction from a gator laser. Now, I gotta be honest, though being one of the most artistic video game worlds ever created, I haven't seen too much of it because I just never had a great ability to draw inside the lines. But fucking hell, if you were interested enough in something as virginity as video game worlds to click on this video, and you haven't seen The World of the Witness, then there's a professor of asinine kennels I think you should meet. The Witness is half puzzle game, half explorable art piece. There are 3 words I keep using in every entry on this totally not one note list, and this game embodies those 3 words in spades. In fact, if you look up any of those 3 words in the dictionary, you will actually not find pictures of this game, but you will find disappointment in yourself for falling for this old hat Lazarus of a joke. The game is literally made for screenshotting. You'll take more viewpoint pictures than a depressed career Instagram model with too much money and too little understanding of how finding yourself really works. There are 100 forests woven intricately all over this alluring isle, one for each pinpoint on the colour spectrum. Then there are dream villas and ocean views, snowy peaks and rocky outbacks, and even an industrial area if that's how you get your kinks, you capitalist sheeple. There isn't much more to say than to keep using hyperbolic superlatives for a thing that's a virtual environment and is designed to look gooder than the other virtual environments. But if The Witness is the peak of picturesque and artisanal design, gotta keep using those words like I want to ask a thesaurus to be my father-in-law, then how is it only at number 3? What comes after that? Well, I'm glad you asked. You see, it's... yeah, how could it not be? The world of Warcraft is one of the largest and most seamless realms in all of gaming. Ask yourself, if I like variety, then how could I not include the game that invented world diversity? If I like savannas, then how could I not include the nostalgia and freedom of the barrens? If I like Eastern architecture and vibrant colours, then how could I not include the Jade Forest and Orang Strat Durotar? If I like open spaces, then how could I not include Mulgar and Uldum? If I like being lost and immersed in a beautiful environment, then how could I not drop PCP? Perhaps it's unfair to other candidates to include an MMO that has had a couple of decades to develop its world, but on the other hand, that doesn't necessarily denote quality, as Blizzard's more recent ideas on art and world design mostly revolve around using rocky or mountainous elevations everywhere, all toned with the ever-lovely colours of brown, black and grey. One day, I wonder if they'll realise that there are other ways to communicate danger and evil than revisiting The Cure concert 3 times in expansion. But, to err on the more positive side and validate WoW's position on an invalid list, I would like you to imagine that you're an imposter pretending to be an elf in the moonlit metropolis of Surima City, living amongst the people to prepare a revolution. If you can achieve that before then sitting down to a nice fireside coffee in the mystical snowbound plains of Winterspring, and finally having a nice dinner of fish and chips within the dazzling kelp forest of Vajir, then you understand why this entry is here. That, or you're now cursing me for reminding you of the good times of a world you loved, which you dropped years ago when it was no longer fun enough to make your money worth it, which you are now too tempted to waste more money on just to return to. In either case, you're welcome! And I'll see you back here next time there's a controversy with a game funded by the Activision Council of Sexual Assault. Quarren, I hear you exclaiming. You stupid, lousy git. You backwashed and trite medium of deplorability. You self-defeating crumb at the bottom of a Pringles can. How can Minecraft be in a ranking of video game worlds when it isn't even specifically designed? When anyone's world can vary greatly from another's? When the experience of a world that lacks so much intent that subjectivity doesn't even begin to explain the issue? Well, my harshly eloquent and vulgarly analytical friend, it's for exactly the reasons you mentioned that Minecraft takes the first place. Nothing better describes a procedurally generated world of Minecraft better than the 3 buzzwords I throw around this list like a Catholic preacher throws salt around his house after the recess bell tolls and he slinks back to his fortress of sin. But on top of that, recognise that these worlds will, besides seed sharing, exist for one person and one person only, and allow said person to impose their own creativity and free will upon endlessly. These worlds provide a genuine basis for the argument of ultimate video game world design. As far as the Department of World Design goes in the gaming industry, Notch equivocally turned on aimbot. Now, procedural generation had been done before Minecraft, and it's been done many times since. But what makes Mojang's work stick out is Notch's timeless art style. And sure, there will be morons who complain about Minecraft being here over God of War or something due to, "But Minecraft looks so shit, the graphics are so pixelated." To which I respond, yes. And that's why Minecraft wins out here. Make your way to Google and look up the definitions of graphical fidelity and art style, and realise why your friends look at you like you accidentally murdered a dog with a plastic-wrapped handful of jelly whenever you bring up your opinion on the matter. Minecraft's world wins out because its simplicity provides unlimited potential and provokes the usage of one's own imagination. I understand that not everybody has an imagination, so to teach yourself, buy a colouring book, start with only 2 colours, and add 1 every page. Either this will develop creativity in you, or it will distract you long enough to forget to leave a stupid comment here. In either scenario, the fact is that Minecraft wins the title of Best Video Game World on a technicality. Almost. With all the bullshit stuff I had to say out of the way, it's time to truthfully talk about the real best world in gaming. Escape the Museum is a true masterpiece of abstract architecture. Employing an armless and blind chimpanzee to draw all of your character art in Microsoft Paint was a stroke of pure and innovative artistic genius. To the untrained eye, these uncanny valley monsters meant to resemble humans may make you vomit so many trainloads of garbage that it's the new fad diet, but to those of an aesthetic awareness, we understand that this is actually the truest definition of originality the art world has seen since the invention of colour. Also, it's not a bad thing that it serves to erect a barrier between the discerning eye and that of the layman. Furthermore, the world of the museum itself is truly something to get lost in, as it resembles nothing of the sort, instead appearing to be a bleak series of storage units with a couple of pillars to distract said layman from the true creativity inside. Not only that, but with a resolution bordering on microscopic, exploring this world proves to be a source of many migraines, never once considering that there are blood vessels around your eye that can burst like any other. What a truly gratifying and challenging world that will have your brain processing its vagaries and anti-consumer spectacles for so many sleepless nights to come. If David Lynch were aware of this title, I'm sure even he would be given a few horrifying somethings to think about. No doubt he would demand all copies of Eraserhead destroyed, so that fans of the abstract might look at but a single scene from Escape the Museum instead. And that is why the true victor of Best Video Game World goes to the developers who didn't for 1 second consider the implications of their design, or let themselves be limited by basic practice standards of the industry by which all other video games provide a safe and comforting experience. Bravo, Escape the Museum! Bravo!